This is Victoria Cartagena. I play Renee Montoya on Gotham, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Hey, this is Andrew Stewart-Jones. I play Christopher Allen on Gotham, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to Gotham TV Podcast, the home of the hit show Gotham, and also the DC Connected universe. This week, we're looking at the second part, Volume 2 of the graphic novel Hush, written by Jeph Loeb and with art by Jim Lee. I'm one of your hosts, John.
And I'm Derek, your other host. How are you this week, John?
Doing good, yeah, not bad.
It's been a fun week this week. Gotham premiered in Ireland this week. We had the pilot finally shown to the wider nation. We've been talking about it for almost a year now as a TV show, and finally our wider friends and family have been watching it. So I've gotten a bunch of people, from people in work to family, contacting me and going, "This show you've been talking about for the last year is great, actually, really enjoyable." So we've got a bunch of new listeners for our pilot episode of the podcast as well, which is great.
Yeah, same here. Like in work, people talking about the show. It's on RT2. People seem to have enjoyed it. Certainly the pilot. It was really interesting watching over the pilot again, actually.
Yeah, it was.
And I think it holds up well, to be honest.
Definitely.
I think it's a good opener.
Yeah.
It's strong. It introduces everyone in a nice way, in a good way. And I still think it holds up.
Definitely.
After the 10 episodes we've watched so far.
Definitely. It was great fun live tweeting it on Monday night and getting some responses from Andrew Stewart-Jones and from some of the other cast members with Drew Powell, who was favouriting some of our tweets and retweeting them, and Robin Lord Taylor, who was retweeting and favouring some of the posts, and Claire Foley, who plays Poison Ivy.
Yeah,
but that
great
was
fun.
Yeah, so I think we'll be rewatching episodes as we wait for the Gotham to premiere again for the second half of the season on Channel 5.
And that's confirmed now that it will happen in March, although there's still no exact date.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, the tension is being drawn out quite a lot by Channel 5. I presume they're waiting to see how they will kind of finish in line with North America again, like they did for the first half of the season 1 of Gotham.
Yeah, and as we've said before, they have confirmed it's March, but they've also confirmed that all 12 episodes of the rest of the season will air back to back, week to week for 12 weeks. So I'm sure they're just trying to confirm exactly when that'll make the show end, or when that'll be okay for them to not have any breaks in between episodes. That's good.
And another new bit of format that we're testing out here with this episode is we're putting the news now to the end of the episode, and normally we'll go straight into the review. But before we do, we want to say a big thank you and a big shout out to Sophia from Gotham Originals. They're a fan page and a fan group on Facebook, on Twitter. Really good group to get involved with. If you're following Gotham and interested in discussing anything about the show, really want to say a big thank you for sharing the first half of this review, Volume 1 Hush review that we did in our last episode.
Mm-hmm.
To everyone, that was really good. And also a big thank you to then Cole Vallis, who plays Tommy Elliot on Gotham.
Yeah, he also shared the episode on his own Facebook page with his friends and family, and thanked us for talking about him. It's no hassle, Cole. You did a great job on the show, as we talked about, and yeah, we're delighted that you think to share our episode with your friends and family. That was great. Yeah,
so thank you so much for sharing that. Also, remember that if you've got any thoughts on the episode, you can leave a review. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, Player FM, Stitcher, any other good podcast catcher. You can listen to our podcasts on our website as well at www.gothamtvpodcast.com. So more than welcome to leave comments, reviews, subscribe. That would be great.
Yeah, and make sure you send any feedback into us at feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com.
And again, just before we go into the review, so we're kind of drawing it out, a bit like Channel 5 with the date of the start of the second half of Gotham.
Absolutely.
But we got some feedback from one of our followers on Facebook, on our Facebook page. Just search Gotham TV Podcast, and you can join us there and like the page. By Dylan Exner. He goes, I think you missed a Joker watch in episode 10. The gang that Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, he calls them the Batcat visited, good term, reminded me of the Jokers. And also in episode 3, then he goes on to say there was some graffiti on the wall that said "smile."
Yeah.
So there's two. We knew about the graffiti on the wall that said "smile." I think one of our other listeners, Daniel Butcher, had also pointed that out previously.
Yeah, I can't believe we missed that.
But we did miss it at the time. So Dylan, you're absolutely right. Completely missed that. And then with the Jokers and that gang that were kind of taking the money, dealing out the money, buying in goods and so on with them, or the street urchins there in episode 10. I mean, that's an interesting idea. It's an interesting theory that all these could be kind of people that would accumulate into a gang of some sort.
Absolutely.
And it could be the Jokers as well.
Yeah,
Joker's
got to get his followers somewhere.
Yeah, I know what he means by kind of saying that, reminded him of, some kind of other gang in Gotham that's not connected necessarily to the mob. They seem a bit more kind of anarchic in that sense. So that's kind of interesting.
More street level
point, I think, that Dylan raises. So we'll definitely have to do a retrospective Joker watch, I think, for our first episode of the return of Gotham on Channel 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I think we're on to a review of Hush Volume 2. All right, John, do you want to give us a synopsis of Hush Volume 2? Just quickly, it's the issues that this covers are issues 613 to 619 of Batman. As John mentioned earlier on, it's written by Jeph Loeb and with art by Jim Lee. Again, but you can collect it in Volume 2 of Hush, or it's also collected in one complete collection of Hush Volume 1 and 2. Hope you enjoyed our podcast last week about Volume 1, but John will talk about Volume 2.
Yeah, and also Scott Williams is, I think, the inker.
That's right.
On this.
One big thing I will say is that if you haven't read Hush, we're going to spoil everything about it as we go. So stop here, read it, and come back to us.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're still here?
As Batman continues to investigate and track down the mysterious mastermind behind all of the crimes of Batman's adversaries, all claim it is part of a game. In particular, the Joker is unleashed on Batman, killing his boyhood friend Tommy Elliot. As all the events unfold, Batman and Nightwing discover evidence that Ra's al Ghul is possibly behind this grand plot. As Batman and Ra's al Ghul, face off, he tells Batman an intriguing clue that someone from his past has desecrated one of the Lazarus pits. Even more disturbing evidence comes to light as events begin to unfold. His ally, Huntress, becomes delusional and tries to attack Catwoman and Batman. Batman's former second Robin, Jason Todd, is seemingly resurrected and attacks the Batman. And finally, a device is found on his computer deep within Batman's base, the Batcave. As events unfold to their conclusion, a final confrontation takes place between Batman and the man behind the bandages, known as Hush. His identity is revealed, but he is not unmasked, as he is shot by a seemingly recovered and allied Harvey Dent falling into the river to disappear. An unexpected mastermind is finally revealed in the last moments of the story.
So really interesting. What do you kind of think of this Volume 2 of Hush? What's your overall kind of opinion of it?
I really liked it. Again, it builds from Volume 1. The Volume 1 was really, for me, the setup, and it gets the intrigue going. Who's the guy with the bandages? There's all this element of friendship and acquaintances which pulls over into Volume 2. And now this is the real sort of payoff of that, where things begin to unfold at a faster and faster pace. I mean, this is an absolute rogues gallery, you could argue.
Absolutely,
of Batman's adversaries, acquaintances. In particular, this second volume really focuses on Batman's enemies and his adversaries that come from his past, whereas the first half was about maybe his friends and acquaintances more so, being sort of resurrected in his mind, him finding new love with Catwoman. That carries on. So for me, this is a real good payoff, and it's a great payoff. There is a lot of twists and turns, Absolutely. A lot of bluffs and counter bluffs being played by Jeph Loeb in this second part of the Hush series.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I really enjoyed this this book. I'd read it a couple of times before. It's been quite a while since I read it, actually, to be honest. Probably a couple of years, but I didn't really remember how many twists and turns were in there. It actually had me questioning whether I was right about the identity of who Hush was, because I think it's the bandages come off 3 times, I think, or they come off twice in the story, and reveal 2 different characters that could possibly be Hush. And they're kind of the big cliffhangers of each of those issues. And then it gets to the end and there's a different reveal of who it is, essentially. So I really do like Jeph Loeb's style. I mentioned it last week. He's definitely knows how to play within that toolbox of DC.
Big time.
Jeph Loeb's reveals of each of the characters that could possibly be Hush, where the bandages come off one time and it's Harvey Dent, a newly mended Harvey Dent with no Two-Face anymore. Now on the side of good. I think it's a huge and brilliant reveal. And then the other reveal of Jason Todd, who's a character that had been killed in the past and had never returned. I think that's a fantastic reveal in the book. It's 2 great ones, and both of them had me thinking, oh, hold on a second, maybe Harvey Dent is behind this, or maybe it's Jason Todd behind this. So excellent work.
And it's the trench coat as well. They're all wearing the trench coat.
Yeah. It's really, really good, though. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I think for me, one of the big twists that comes very early on, Bruce and Selina, they go to, and Tommy Elliot as well, go to the opera, which is kind of gate crashed by one of the first introductions of one of Batman's big adversaries, the Joker and Harley Quinn.
Yep.
And a chase ensues through the opera and across the roofs by Batman of Harley Quinn and the Joker. And Tommy Elliot is shot by Joker.
Yeah.
Or seemingly shot by the Joker. But he dies, and Batman is incensed by all of this that's going on. But for me, this was one of the first big twists. This was one of the first points that kind of pulls the rug from underneath my feet in relation to this story, because I felt that reading Volume 1, those first 5 issues, it was really seemed to be pointing you to this mysterious bandaged character being Tommy Elliot. There was all this talk about the game, playing chess and so on, and that it was Tommy Elliot, and all of a sudden, Tommy Elliot is shot.
Yeah,
taken out, apparently by the Joker, and to me as well, this is the first big twist, and it then also leads to one of the first big kind of sections of panels for me that is, quite frankly, amazing. I think seeing Batman lose his cool towards the Joker.
Oh, yeah.
It is pretty, it's violent, it's fierce, it's frightening to see Batman on the edge of losing control. He kind of pushes Catwoman aside, who's trying to stop him from doing anything he would not under any normal circumstance do. He knocks her out in the process. All these emotions that the Joker brings forward really aggravate the entire situation for Batman, and he is taking all those years of pain, hurt, of the death of Jason Todd, for example, all that pain and hurt out on Joker, and he wants to kill him. It is that point where he says, if I did kill you, none of these horrendous things would happen.
Absolutely.
Innocent people wouldn't get killed. Maybe I've been too soft, almost, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
And it takes Jim Gordon to stop him with a gun to his head. That's how serious it is. To me, this is one of the best parts of these final 7 issues of Hush. It's really emotional. It's really to the core of Batman to an extent. This difference of should he kill or shouldn't he? Or is he just bringing people to justice, which ultimately, in the case of Joker and other villains, fails. Because, we talk about the revolving doors of Arkham, but they always seem to get off, whether it's through claiming insanity or whether just because they have, more connections that they can escape from prison or get off from any real justice.
Yeah, I think even Robin says it. You sent him off to Arkham. It's going to, I guess it'll be another hour and a half before he gets out. And in fact, Harvey Dent does actually release Joker very quickly after he gets into Arkham, doesn't he? Gets him out in a couple of hours by just saying he's his attorney. He didn't do it, and gets him out of Arkham, which is quite amazing. I do absolutely. This is totally one of the moments that I spoke about where it was so shocking to see Tommy Elliot dead on the ground. Leslie Tompkins is also at the opera with them, isn't she? The Dr. Leslie Tompkins.
Yes.
Who we're going to see in the next half of Gotham. We're going to
Marina
see
Baccarat.
Yeah. So she's also with them at the opera. She could have saved his life, but which is what I thought was going to happen. I thought it was going to be he's dying in the alley, but he gets saved by Leslie Tompkins. But no, he's dead, and they have a funeral and they have a body, and it's one of those things. If you don't see a body, it's probably not dead. But they have a full funeral for this guy, and off they go. So I just assumed, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I misremembered this. Maybe I just assumed it was going to be Tommy Elliot that was Hush. But yeah, they did a nice couple of reveals there.
And I think you also bring up that other aspect, which is from these events we do get to see Harvey Dent appear, actually cooperating with Jim Gordon. He, in this case, is getting Joker out of Arkham. He's saying he hasn't done it. But at this moment, he's wearing a trench coat. You don't really see his face so much. There is then this next twist of, well, is it Harvey Dent who is this mysterious figure? And again, that then tease up this other element of the story that sort of progresses it from Tommy being killed.
Yeah, absolutely.
The question that now hangs is Harvey Dent Hush?
Yeah, and that lasts for a good couple of issues, I suppose. Until as I mentioned earlier on, the other brilliant reveal, Jason Todd, where Batman is kind of forced to go to in fighting with Hush, is forced to go to the graveyard where Jason Todd was buried. This is after the reveal that somebody has used the Lazarus Pit, and then they find that and the bandages are ripped off again, and it's Jason Todd underneath, the former Robin. Slightly older looking than we'd seen him in the previous issues. He's now much older in age. He's around 30 kind of age, 35 kind of age group, I think. But again, I was going, okay, well, I guess Jason Todd is Hush, because there's so many reasons for that, and they give the whole background to it. They give a whole detective route as to how Batman could have solved that it was Jason Todd before now if he just paid attention to the clues. So I was going, okay, well, I'm totally wrong on this. They did a brilliant job, and again, great to see that character back and his interaction with the newer Robin in the book. That's quite interesting, where he's kind of saying to him, "You're the pretender, I'm the real Robin. How did you get this job?" kind of thing. I think that's really good as well. Yeah,
it's a real chilling episode in the comics, and again, another sequence of panels where the action and the fighting depicted by Jim Lee is really, really dynamic between Batman and Jason Todd. Again, I think just for people listening, Jason Todd had previously perished in the events of Batman: A Death in the Family, and so this is obviously a huge shock that is seemingly resurrected. How has this happened? But there's the Lazarus Pit explanation there, but this is all leads to then again one of the other twists, I suppose, or reveals of the story, which is that Batman, whilst he's fighting Jason Todd, is saying, this is almost too perfect. He knows all these things about me, and he fights the same. But there's a few hints that Batman suddenly picks up that this isn't really Jason Todd.
Yeah.
And it's revealed that it's Clayface mimicking the identity of Jason. And this is one of the other then reveals here, is that we find out that Clayface has been involved here within this elaborate plot that's beginning to be revealed, where he's taking on the persona of other people.
Yeah.
And in this case, we would find out it's Jason. And I kind of like that use of Clayface for me. Now, I'm sure it's been done many times since. I don't know how many times previously, using Clayface as almost a mimic, as how long that's been done.
Yeah.
I suspect it could be done or overused if you're not careful. I thought within the context of this storyline, given all the different bad guys who are popping up and taking pops at Batman and his allies, I thought it was a nice way of adding another villain to that gallery of criminals and villains, and it was a great way of using Clayface.
Yeah, I suppose for me, it's one of the things that didn't work as well. I definitely liked him being Jason Todd. I think that was really cool. It was a really good idea. I think him also replacing the body of Tommy Elliot is mentioned later on, that he replaced Tommy Elliot for the funeral and then disappeared afterwards. I just felt it felt a little bit too convenient or too simple to go, sure, it's just Clayface. Like, he could have just been everybody. That would have been the end of the story. Could have been that he was also Joker and also Harley Quinn and also, it just felt a little bit too much. And I do think it's overused. As a person who's read a lot of Batman comics or a lot of comics or even played games that involved Clayface, where he's always replacing somebody, it just feels a little bit overused. I would have liked maybe even just having a scene with the actual character where he explains what his involvement was, rather than somebody else telling you on a completely different scene that he was the one that replaced Jason Todd and replaced Tommy Elliot. Just felt there was a little bit too much maybe for me.
Yeah, but we do find then from this that Tommy Elliot has also then was replaced by Clayface. So that's a huge reveal from previous issues then, that it is brought out that Tommy Elliot wasn't shot there.
Yeah.
So was Tommy Elliot ever alive? And this then becomes a really interesting point, and various other things are developing around this, such as Huntress, who we saw save Batman in the first series of comics, suddenly starts to attack him and Catwoman. She becomes delusional, and she's kind of, it's like she's been drugged, and then that introduces Scarecrow. There's all these different villains being introduced. The Riddler as well is introduced. He's involved in a big bank heist. And the one thing that Batman picks from all of these rogues that he's encountering and who are specifically targeting him, the one thing he does kind of note is that the Riddler's one doesn't seem out of place.
Yeah.
That bank job, the bank heist, seems to be, it's not unusual for the Riddler to be doing this, whereas a lot of the other criminals, like Scarecrow, like Killer Croc, like we said from the previous episode, like Joker and Harley Quinn, have all been doing certain things that they would never have done. In the crimes that they're committing. Yeah,
that's the one connection between all of them, isn't it? That they're not doing what they normally do, except for Riddler. But yeah, I think that's kind of what leads them to realize that there's somebody else behind this.
Yeah, but we actually find that there's two players, two masterminds behind this plot of trying to attack deep at the heart of Batman, his psyche, his relationships, whether it's the dead Jason Todd, whether it's with Catwoman, whether it's with the Huntress, whether it's going in and manipulating his mechanic, Harold, who has added a device to the computer in the Batcave, really striking at the heart of everything that Batman holds dear to him. And we find out that there's two. And the first one we find out is revealed on one of the bridges across the river by Gotham as Batman goes to meet Harold, because he twigs that this is Harold who's planted this device in the computer. And poor Harold, I don't really know this character actually. It's something that kind of just cropped up, and I kind of thought, I've never really heard of this character before. I wasn't entirely sure about this trusted mechanic, Harold, because of that. But he he is the trusted mechanic, and he was kind of bribed to betray, ultimately Batman, by saying that he would have he's kind of slightly deformed, and that they would be corrected and improved. And this is very much now suggestive of Tommy Elliot.
Yeah.
We found out that Clayface was Tommy Elliot, and we actually then see the trench coat and the bandages.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's really interesting that all the theories that I had were wrong. So even though I knew that Tommy Elliot was Hush from opening the first page of the first volume, they tricked me enough into wondering whether it was or not, and then finally we get the reveal, or we get it at least announced that it is Tommy Elliot, and confirmation of why he's doing it. Essentially, he's really angry at Bruce for allowing his mother to survive a car crash when he was a kid, because he set that all up to inherit the family's millions. He's envious of Bruce because Bruce has been an orphan and he's had all that money to play with for those decades. He doesn't seem to see that this is what caused Bruce to become the Batman. This is what caused Bruce to be as angry as he was by losing his parents. He wanted to knock them off to get the money, essentially. So yeah,
it's a real twist on the death of the parents story. Obviously, iconically, Thomas and Martha Wayne being shot, and that whole impetus leading to the Batman. This is kind of the reflection of that, the evil reflection that, well, I set up the death, and it was thwarted by your dad saving my mum, and I've not been able to have access to all the money that my parents had. So there's real evil. I mean, it's really sly, and that's just a really nice little sort of aspect, I think, to their relationship. That, in a sense, Volume 1 suggested that they were, that were different, and now you realise that they were very different. He actually is a premeditated murderer, even at a young, tender age. That's really interesting to see in this story. But he's not actually unmasked, though. He doesn't take off the bandages, because he gets shot by Harvey Dent.
Yeah. I have to say, it kind of annoys me that you don't get the reveal, or you don't even find out why he's wearing the bandages. There's a discussion a bit later on, which we'll talk about, but with the other mastermind behind it, but who essentially you get confirmation that it's Tommy Elliot. You get told it's Tommy Elliot. Surely Bruce knows his voice, so he knows it's Tommy Elliot. But is there a reason he's wearing the bandages? Was that whole the person who did the surgery on him who looked like an older Tommy Elliot? Is that Tommy Elliot? Is that what he looks like now? I guess it is. Is that what he looks like under the bandages, or is there something wrong with his face? I don't know. It just seemed like a really weird way to do it at the end of it, that he would be wearing a mask.
So there still is a hanging question mark as to whether it is Thomas Elliot.
I think it is.
I think it is as well.
Pretty definite.
And I think we can assume it is. But it's nonetheless, there is that question mark that could ultimately get exploited down the line.
Yeah, but I suppose, maybe it just would have taken him too long to put back on the bandages, so he didn't want to take them off.
And his body is never recovered either. So, I mean, again, that's another aspect.
Absolutely, no. That's pretty much guaranteed. There is a future Hush. We know there is. We know there's other comics that feature the character Hush. But I like that he brings in Superman to essentially dredge the river with his eyes to find out whether Tommy could be there or not. And he said he's probably just washed out to sea. But yeah, very likely that he's still alive. But yeah, you mentioned the other mastermind behind this plot is the Riddler,
which is brilliant,
isn't it? Yeah,
I think it's a great, again, the big reveal, the big twist, the trick that's brought in is this whole riddle is down to the Riddler. And I think it's a really good way of using Edward Nygma, the Riddler, in the story. He's one of those characters, again, sometimes certain characters can kind of get into a certain niche of how they behave, or maybe they're not the biggest foe. They get into a certain niche in terms of, what they're expected to do. Obviously, do riddles in the case of the Riddler, which kind of maybe doesn't fit with all the storylines. Or maybe, it's from a different age, and for modern audiences, that just doesn't maybe connect in the same way. And I think this was a really good way of making the Riddler fresh and connect in with a real up-to-date modern storyline of Batman.
Yeah.
And it was great to see this reveal of the Riddler being the overall mastermind and puppeteer behind all of the actions of all these different people.
Yeah. It's very interesting that you describe it that way, because I do like that that's how the Riddler describes himself. He essentially says, when I came out first, there was nobody doing anything. Now everybody's got some kind of trick. Everybody's got some kind of gimmick that they use. Mine was a riddle, and the put down from Batman to him is brilliant, where he just says, what's the use in a riddle that everybody knows the answer to? You're useless, essentially. Is his put down as he walks away from him. I think that's fantastic.
Well, it's a put down, but it's a threat to him as well, because what we find from this exchange between Batman and the Riddler is that it's the Riddler who's used the Lazarus pit to cure himself of cancer. And during this time in the pit and his recovery, which can send people mad and delusional, like Ra's al Ghul, then he had deduced Batman's identity as Bruce Wayne. And so he was the one that was approaching all these villains. He approached Tommy Elliot to be the main focus of this attack on Batman. And Bruce Wayne ultimately says, my secret is safe, because Riddler threatens to reveal his identity, and he uses that put down, which is, if you tell everyone the answer, where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
You've lost your power. And on the second point, I'll tell Ra's al Ghul that you'd used one of his Lazarus pits.
Yeah.
So he'll come and kill you.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
You won't say anything. I know you're not going to say anything. And it's a really nice end, I think, to this whole saga.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I love is just essentially Riddler connecting the dots for Batman is great. Where he says that the reason why Killer Croc was involved was because they'd given him a virus which was giving him even worse mutations, essentially. So he was involved so that he could get the cure for that. They'd gotten Ivy involved because she had a bit of a thing for Selina, and that she wanted the money, but she also wanted to mess with Selina Kyle. That Harley Quinn was involved so that she could work with the Joker. That the Joker was involved because he wouldn't normally be involved. He was involved because he loved the joke about Jason Todd coming back from the dead and wanted to see Bat's reaction to it, essentially. Which I think is really, really good. Clayface came in it for the money, and then, as I said, Riddler was involved because he wanted to be a player again. He wanted to be someone that was taken seriously and a criminal mastermind again. So I love that laying out of the story for Batman from Riddler. I thought that was really, really good element.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's even just that it connects back into when Batman kind of senses that the Riddler was the one criminal that wasn't acting abnormally. He was doing what Batman would expect the Riddler to do. All the others weren't.
Yeah, no, definitely, really, really good. There's only one other thing that I really want to talk about, I suppose, from the story myself, which is kind of a really big lead-in from the Volume 1 into Volume 2, is the relationship between Selina and Bruce. Batman has revealed to Catwoman that he is Bruce Wayne. He takes off the mask, he reveals it to her, and now this essentially whole volume deals with their relationship after that revelation. So how do Batman and Catwoman get along when they know each other's secret identity? He trusts her to watch over Talia when he kidnaps her, and protect her from keep her essentially, even under an attack from the League of Assassins, which is pretty huge. He also shows her all his scars that he's gotten and all the ones he's kept over the years, which is a really good sequence from Jim Lee as well. I love the artwork where he's showing off all the scars.
Yeah. And you've got the cat claws across his chest on the side of his heart, actually, which was a really nice touch. But that was a really lovely set of sequences and dialogue connected to the artwork, where it kind of goes to a kind of almost like black and white when he shows the scars from all the different nemesis, whether it's from a gunshot or like from a scratch from Catwoman. That was excellent.
That was really, really good. But then, the issues end with Selina saying, essentially, don't worry about it, Bruce. I'm here for you. I trust you. Hush. And the minute she says it, that turns Bruce onto thinking that she may be involved as well in this whole element. So is the relationship over now?
Yeah, I mean, it is that lost love of Batman and Catwoman here, which I shed a little tear, I think, when it failed to really take hold by the end
you're
of
a real
of
romantic.
Volume 2. Yeah, I am really. I was like, Selina, why did you have to just say that 4-letter word, hush?
Yeah.
And it's like, it does. It provokes a real fierce reaction from the Batman, and it just leaves that hanging doubt that, well, she was involved, and what did she get from the Riddler out of all of this? And you would deduce that she probably was, because that is Batman's thing with Catwoman, is this idea that there is that love that maybe can't go anywhere, and it was beginning to go places.
But you deduced that she was involved in the plot as well?
No, I'm not saying that she... I don't know, but I can see that if we're saying that all the other people were involved for various reasons, this may have been that she actually did want to have that moment with Batman, that embrace, that kiss, this whole romantic, strange romantic, but romantic entanglement with the Batman, and that was what she was being sold on. Because she goes along all the way through, really helping him. I'm not saying she didn't want it anyway, but this was where she knew she definitely could get it.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know.
Interesting. So overall, would you recommend the book for
I would
readers?
recommend it. I think I would give Hush Volume 2 3.5 4 bandages out of 5. And I think overall, Hush, I would definitely give us 4 batarangs out of 5.
Nice. For me, I think it's just that personal connection with a childhood friend of Bruce's. You do not see that very often at all. Having a story like this written by an excellent writer like Jeph Loeb, and with artwork, as we talked about many times, from Jim Lee, I think it's fantastic. It's one that I can't do without. And I also would say it's a great jumping on point for anybody who's not read every comic out there. I think they explain the connections between every single villain and Batman, and every single one of his friends, from Superman all the way through to Catwoman and Riddler and Joker, and everybody has their connections. He explains it all the way, so you could just pick this up, read these 2 volumes, and not have to read any other book. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a brilliant potted history of Batman and his acquaintances, and I think that's one of the big themes that runs through it, is his friends, his friendships, his relationships, his acquaintances, his adversaries, all of that. It's a real web of all those relationships, of love, of conflicts, of hate, between him as Batman and his close acquaintances and his villainous acquaintances, and that is a really good aspect to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Only one other thing that just jumped to mind there when I was thinking back on reading Hush. One great scene with Alfred, which I just thought was hilarious, where Bruce is trying to chase him down and trying to find out if Alfred's in the house, and goes, "Alfred, you're here." And Alfred says, "Well, as the world's greatest detective, I probably shouldn't point it out to you, but yes, I am." Which is a great little moment, and I could almost see Sean Pertwee talking like that to young Bruce. But yeah, I really like that. Anything else from you on Hush?
No, I mean, the only thing which was slightly weird is we do get introduced to Lex Luthor here. I mean, talk about every possible connection with Batman. This one seems slightly out of left field, to the extent that, yes, there was a reason why he was introduced, that, as the president now of the United States of America, he couldn't be the CEO of LexCorp. And it's Talia al Ghul who is the CEO of LexCorp. So when she gets kidnapped by Batman, held by Catwoman out of the way whilst Batman tracks down Ra's al Ghul, who he thinks is involved and is the mastermind behind the plot. There's a brief shot of Lex Luthor at the White House, and I just kind of thought that was the only unnecessary bit, I think.
I know what you mean. It's one of those ones where it puts it in its time, I suppose, or in essentially when it was published. That's at the time when Lex Luthor was president of the US. So I'm sure it was just connecting into other issues that were out that month, just to have him in there, really. But you're right, totally unnecessary.
The other interesting fact as well on this was that another 6 issues were scheduled, and they never happened. So
right.
The whole aspect of Tommy Elliot or Hush falling from the river and his body not being found, that may have potentially played out in these further 6 issues that were originally planned to come off the back of the current 12 that we have.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting that didn't happen.
Absolutely.
And I suppose ultimately we'll never know. But it's interesting that such a big story arc that actually now has, not only is it a popular piece with readers, it's critically acclaimed.
Isn't it considered one of the top 10 Batman novels?
Yeah, absolutely. That they didn't do an extra 6. It's interesting.
It is very interesting. But there is one thing that did come out of the book, which I read in my research today. Jason Todd. So apparently they retconned his. So they essentially rewrote history based on this story, saying that actually Jason Todd was revived, did come back to life, and just switched places with Clayface for that final battle with Batman. So that's how Jason Todd was back in the universe, essentially in the DC universe. That's they took it from this story essentially. So, but that was quite interesting.
And that is interesting because one of the troubling things for Batman at the end of his interrogation of the Riddler, when we find out that the Riddler is the big mastermind, is that the man he fought at the graveyard was obviously revealed to be Clayface, but Jason Todd's remains were still missing.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And, that is, again, a big question mark, a big mystery that is held over this. Speaking of question marks, it's obviously the Riddler's symbol. And there are a few left over from the end of this series of comics.
Yeah, but definitely enjoyed it regardless of the questions, and it just makes me want to read more Batman as always, which is great.
Yeah.
Always a good sign. So I think that's it for a review.
Yeah.
So with that, on to the news in its new location. So, John, do you have the first bit of news for this week?
Yeah, so the Dollmaker. So the Dollmaker from episode 2 of Gotham will appear in the show. And it's Colm Feore, who played King Laufey in Thor and has also appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And he's making this trek across from Marvel into DC as the Dollmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've seen the Dollmaker already on TV, and that's been on Arrow, season 1 of Arrow. But we don't know whether there's going to be any similarities between the two. I would suspect not.
Yeah.
It's certainly a different actor playing the role. But I'm intrigued to see how the Dollmaker plays out, and I'm really pleased. We had a few theories when we recorded episode 2 on the Dollmaker.
That's right.
About how that was going to fit into the overall story. And I think later on in the episode on Viper, again, the dark undertones within the Wayne Corporation, and references made by Fish Mooney to do with kids on the streets, and them going missing.
Mm-hmm.
All this, that maybe it would connect in with the Dollmaker at a future episode.
Yeah.
And so maybe it will, now that we've got confirmation that he is cast and will be appearing.
Yeah, you had some theories that he was the creator of Venom and that he was giving it to kids on the street to to create a Bane army, wasn't it? That was your idea. I think that was really good. The character was mentioned by his two henchmen, who are the creepy characters who kept talking like they were from the 20s, essentially, in episode 2. Delighted to see that we're going to get a big arching connection from episode 2 all the way to episode 15, I think he's in there. 15 or 16, I think, yeah. But yeah, good, an interesting piece of news there, definitely. In other casting news for another DC property, the character of Supergirl has been cast. Melissa Benoist, from probably most recently seen in Glee and the movie Whiplash, has been cast to play Supergirl. So Supergirl is going to be a CBS series. They have said the character could cross over with CBS's younger brother, the CW, which broadcasts both Arrow and Flash. So we could see the character crossing over there. But it's again one of those ones where they're saying, let's see how the show goes. Let's make it its own series. They're not scheduling it like they did with Arrow and Flash, with a crossover within the first 4 or 5 episodes or anything like that. And it seems like it would be quite a very different universe when you're talking about Krypton and superpowers, as opposed to
bow and arrows.
Well, I suppose speed is a superpower. So so the Flash is definitely a superpowered hero. But yeah. It's quite an interesting.
Yeah, it should be a really interesting series, given how successful Smallville was. Of course, Superman as well, with Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Superman TV or Supergirl TV, I suppose, has been successful. Yeah. It really has, and I'm interested to see how this does, because I suspect it could be a real winner for CBS.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm really intrigued. Is there any other news for this week, John?
No, that's all the news for this week, I think.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for listening, as always. You can get in contact with us at feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Gotham TV Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook, on Tumblr, Instagram, Gotham TV Podcast. Put that in the search and hit enter, and hopefully we will pop up on the screen. Like our page on Facebook, +1 us on Google+, follow us on Twitter. We're here to answer any comments, get involved with the show. Any thoughts of Hush from your point of view? Any thoughts on Gotham and how you think that's going to develop, moving towards the rest of the season and up to episode 22?
Mm-hmm.
Then give us a shout. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think of Colm Feore being cast as the Dollmaker? Are you excited to see this character on Gotham? I think we are. I think it's a really sort of dark, intriguing character. But again, we want to say thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes, and you'll get our next episode straight off when it comes out. Thanks again for listening. We'll leave you with a bit of Hush by Coolest Shaker. This song couldn't get out of my head when I was reading this book. So enjoy.
Thank you.
Hush, I heard you calling my name. Now hush, hush, they broke my heart and knocked me down. Now hush, hush, I thought I heard you call my name. Now hush, hush, they broke my heart and I'm not searching now. Early in the morning, late in the evening, oh, gotta leave me, honey. Oh, never was a
Gotham TV Podcast. Do not cross Alan and Montoya.
I mean, given how successful Smallville was, given how successful Superman was with Terry Thatcher and Margaret Thatcher, with Margaret Thatcher in the lead role as Lois Lane. No, with Terry Hatcher and Hatchet, Terry Hatchet job.
Any other news for this week? Is there any other news for this week, John?
No, there isn't.